Welcome back to yet another video. If you feel like you're practicing a ton but not seeing the improvement you expected, you're not alone. I hear this all the time from people and from students. I'm working on scales, but my solos still sound bad. I'm playing along to backing tracks for hours, but I'm not improving. I've transcribed solos, but none of it seems to be really getting into my playing. If that sounds familiar to you, today we're going to break down 6 reasons why your practice might not be working, and more importantly, how to fix them. Let's dive right in. The first area is spending too much time on scales and warm-ups, which is a common trap. I've heard students say they spend up to 30 minutes of their practice session just on scales and technical exercises, thinking this will make them better improvisers. The reality is, while scales and warm-ups are important, they should only take about 5 to 10 minutes of your session. People often try to go through all 12 keys perfectly, focusing too much on flawless fingering and execution, but this isn't the best use of your time. Instead, you should rotate through 3 to 4 keys per day, moving on to another set the next day. This way, you cycle through all 12 keys every few days without getting stuck in endless repetition. The key is to recognize that improvisation rarely involves running a scale from root to root in a real musical situation. The goal is to develop familiarity and good fingering so that when you're actually playing, the technique is there for you when you need it. Here's 3 fixes. 1. Limit your scale practice to 5 to 10 minutes per session. Pick 3 to 4 keys each day instead of trying to do all 12 at once. Focus on musical application rather than perfection. Practice scales in ways that actually relate to improvisation, like playing small melodic ideas or motifs instead of just running them up and down all the time. Move on, even if it's not perfect. You'll revisit these scales daily, so there's no need to get everything right in one session. The goal is to build familiarity, not to perfect a drill. The second main area is spending too much time playing the heads of tunes and not improvising on them. One of the biggest traps jazz pianists fall into, myself included, is spending way too much time on perfecting how they play the head of a tune, getting the melody just right, locking in your voicings, and making sure everything is in time, etc. While this can help get fluidity with voicings and rhythm, the problem is learning a pre-written melody will not improve your improvisation and soloing skills. Anyone can learn to play the head. It's how you solo that's really going to be what sets you apart, and how you're received by audiences and peers. I used to do this myself, thinking that if I could play the head really well or add some variations, I was making real progress. You have to know the head of a tune for sure, but the truth is, just as much time, if not more, needs to be spent on improvising over the chord changes and getting comfortable soloing with different soloing techniques and left-hand techniques. Once you've learned the melody and voicings, shift your focus to improvisation and do it soon. So here's 3 ways to fix this. Improvise right away. As soon as you've learned the melody, start improvising over the changes. Even if it feels uncomfortable, push through that. Try limiting yourself to just chord tones at first or simple motifs, then expand from there. Use different left-hand techniques. Instead of always playing the written voicings, experiment with root position voicings, rootless voicings, stride, or even walking bass lines. This forces you to think differently about time and feel and makes you more adaptable when soloing. Play without the head. Set a timer and play over the chord changes for a few minutes without ever playing the melody or the head. Focus on developing your soloing ideas rather than relying on the head as a crutch. The sooner you start spending real time improvising instead of just playing the head, the faster your soloing skills will improve. It seems so obvious, but it is harder, less comfortable, and takes more work, but you don't want to avoid this like I did. It is absolutely worth your time, even if you don't feel comfortable. Doing so is the thing that will actually make you better and give you real progress. So start improvising early and often. The third major area is transcribing entire solos and wondering why it's not helping you as much as you had hoped. While it's important to see the architecture of a solo from beginning to end, this is essentially the classical approach, and it's just way too much for the brain to remember. I hear so many people say they've transcribed solo after solo, but then get frustrated that none of it or hardly any of it gets into their playing. Think of it like learning a foreign language. Would you memorize a 30-page chapter of a book to learn how to speak the language, or would you focus on a few select short phrases, practicing them over and over in conversation until they feel natural to you? The answer should be so obvious. Instead of overwhelming yourself and not being able to remember or use things from entire solos, focus on a few small, select short phrases that will actually stick. Here's how to fix this. Learn short phrases. Instead of transcribing full solos, focus on 1 or 2 short phrases that are 1 to 2 bars in length. Learn the phrase in all 12 keys and spend at least a week minimum really internalizing each phrase before moving on to another one. Create variations. Slightly alter the phrase by changing the rhythm, adding a few notes at the end, or adjusting a small part of it in your own way. This helps you absorb the concept behind it rather than just copying it blindly. This way you'll be able to use it and get used to using it in a more improvised way instead of trying to execute it perfectly. Most importantly, apply it to tunes. Use the phrase or phrases all the time, anywhere you can. If it's a major chord phrase, use it on every major chord in a tune. Actively work it into your improv so it becomes a natural part of your vocabulary. Let me know in the comments which one of these stood out to you most, or if there's another practice frustration you've been dealing with. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and check out the free guides in the description below. There's a guide on where to start if you're new to jazz piano or coming from a classical background, a practice structuring guide if you're overwhelmed and feeling disorganized, and you can download my modes cheat sheet, which covers all the modes of major and melodic minor. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.